Get a little bit of water here.
Make sure there's no fluoride in that water. It's a commie plot.
Distilled. I only
Grain
drink
alcohol and rainwater.
grain alcohol. Yeah. All right. Well, welcome back to History According to Hollywood. We are chugging along. I don't know.
Zooming. We're zooming along.
We're zooming along. Nobody knows we record on Zoom until now.
They do now, baby.
We have a guest this week. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Johannes. I'm your friendly neighborhood movie podcaster from California, I guess. From across the country, as we established. The podcast I'm doing is called Movie Mistrial, and we are going through the IMDb top 250 movies, top to bottom. Other way around would have been more fun, I think. But anyway, top to bottom. And we are debating these movies as if they were put on trial. So we flip a coin to decide who's the defense for the movie being on that list and who's going to prosecute the movie for its place on the list. And yeah, we've been at it for quite a while. 90 episodes in, 90 movies in.
Have you had to prosecute any of your favorite movies yet?
Oh yeah, Alien. Alien is probably my favorite movie. We have to talk about that.
I would have pleaded the fifth. I wouldn't have said anything.
Well, I mean, you can get really nitpicky if you really have to, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. That's
but
true.
Alien is kind of challenging because it's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But I mean, there's some real weird movies on that list where I'm like, why are they even here?
Oh, I'm sure.
Doing?
Yeah.
So it's been kind of cool to go through these movies that are revered and classic, and you're like, what are you doing?
We had that with The Searchers. We watched it, we got it, and we're like, and everybody loves this movie. Why?
Right. Can't quite figure that one out.
Can't quite understand that one, but it's because it's John Wayne in the 50s. That's the answer. Like that's why.
Speaking of revered and classic, Kyle, what are we talking about this week?
A movie that is neither of those things, but it's a great time.
It's
a
revered.
Great time. Is it? Is it by who?
Some?
By you?
By a good. I mean, people like this movie.
You know what? You don't like Last of the Mohicans. Your opinion is no longer valid.
My opinion is more valid than ever, Kyle.
This was your brainchild. We're talking about A Knight's Tale with the illustrious, the illuminous, the deceased Heath Ledger.
Hey, watch it.
Is he not dead?
He's a beloved icon. Careful.
Right, but he's dead, right?
Yes,
like
he is.
Okay.
Yes, he is.
Well, then nothing I said was inaccurate.
I mean, I'm just telling you.
It's been a hot minute, buddy. It's been like 16 years.
They're going to come at you with pitchforks.
That's fine. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Just ask my genetic code.
All right. Nobody's going to get that either. Okay, moving on.
If I may add, he's also the only Joker. So
yes.
that.
Exactly. He's the only Joker I acknowledge. That's it. There is no other. The first Batman movie was just Batman. There was no villain, and then
the first like 6, 7. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just not one.
There's not one,
Joker.
and then there's the one where he's the Joker, and then there's not a lot others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
True.
Anyways, that's fine. Hot Tate's starting us off. Let's go. This is
Excellent.
great. Yeah, A Knight's Tale, 7.0 IMDb. Okay. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 59. All right. And audience gave it a 79, which is
Correct.
1% higher than Last of the Mohicans.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't think that's true.
I know where Arkansas is. It's not that far.
Oh, that's not true. I doubt it. Anyways, box office, $117 million on a $65 million budget. Not bad. Respectable. Mm-hmm. This is directed by Brian oh my gosh, names already. This is directed by Brian Helgeland, who directed Legend, which I've already made a joke about, starring Tom Hardy, and also Tom Hardy. He also directed 42. That was another one. That was probably when I made that joke. He wrote 2 Mel Gibson movies, so Kyle loves him. And then he also wrote L.A. Confidential and A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4.
Yay.
Nobody cares.
One of
The
the
one
worst.
people
One
like.
of the worst ones. Woo!
Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 is not one of the worst ones. It is.
Is it a movie that isn't Nightmare on Elm Street? Because if it is, it's one of the worst ones.
That's not true at all, Kyle. I'm going to come with you with a pitchfork, okay? No Oscar wins or nominees, but it was nominated. It was nominated for MTV's Best Kiss Award. All right, let's go through our cast here. How old was Heath Ledger whenever this was released?
What the movie's what? 2006?
2001.
2001. Oh boy. 25, 28. I'm gonna go with 25. Johannes, what do you got? What's your guess?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with 28.
Wow.
28?
All right. Cool. A lot of originality here.
I know.
22.
Oh my
Oh, wow.
god. Oh wow. Okay.
22.
Well, to my defense, in the beginning of the film, he looks like 28, and then he cleans up really nice, I guess.
That's true. Yes,
Yeah.
he looks 28 and then he looks 18. And
I
then
mean, Heath Ledger started looking like 25 in The Patriot and then never stopped. Like he just
He
kept
stayed-
looking 25.
right.
And I checked, so this film is not on the IMDb top 250. I wonder why.
I think it's 251.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I don't know. Probably not. It's probably like 2000.
Because it's a 7.0 and there's 1.5 million movies that are a 7 on IMDb.
7.1.
the list is topping at 8.1. So
There we go. There we go. All right.
anyway,
Heath Ledger, 22. Jocelyn, I don't know her age, but she's played by Shannon Sosaman. Kyle, I'm gonna have to have you doing the cast. Why am I the one reading these names?
I don't know, because it's a funny bit. I just like that you
Is
can't
it
read
funny?
English.
I don't
it's
think
funny.
I don't know if anyone's finding it funny, but okay, here we go.
I find
Roland,
it funny.
played by Mark Addy. He's in the Full Monty, and he's Robert Baratheon in Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
he is.
I did
King
not
Bobby
recognize
B,
him.
Baby,
Watt, played by Alan Tudyk.
who's also the chicken in Moana.
Okay. Didn't know that.
of all the films,
Obviously, his most well-known role is Hey in Moana.
Well, he's also the racist guy in 42. So a little alumni
yeah.
for history according to Hollywood there. And he's also in Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which is just a great movie. Jeffrey, played by Paul Bettany. Does anyone know what he's in?
Yeah, he's Vision in Marvel.
It took me so long to figure out who he was, and it just driving me nuts. I could have looked it up, but I was wanting to figure it out on my own. And I ended up just torturing myself for like half this movie.
He's also the main villain in the movie Solo, the Star Wars offshoot that everybody liked for 6 minutes and then forgot about.
I didn't see it. I don't know.
Don't.
So Paul Bettany, fun fact, developed laryngitis while he was doing his belting over the crowd scenes here. He plays the character Geoffrey, which is based on Geoffrey Chaucer. English poet, best known for the Canterbury Tales, died in 1400. And apparently there's a year of his life that's unaccounted for, and this is supposed to be that year.
We also only know he died from a tombstone that was inscribed 100 years after he supposedly died, so we have absolutely no idea when he actually died.
Nobody knows. When I looked it up, I think it said 1340 ? For his birth year.
Mhm.
So that's fun.
Yeah, people didn't have birth certificates back then, so unless you're royalty, they have no idea. And half the time when you're royalty, they're like, it's like 870-ish. I looked at him. When he died, he looked about 70. I take 70 away from when he died. We'll say.
Where's his mother?
Yeah.
Director Brian Helgeland discovered Heath Ledger while he was filming The Patriot, specifically the scene where he rushes the villain at towards the end. Great scene. Rest in
peace, Gabriel.
And this is his first starring role as a lead in an American movie. He starred in a show. He was a leading role there, but this is like his first real big acting role as the lead in an American film. So, welcome to America, Heath. All right, Kyle, first question. What is the origin of jousting?
So the origin of jousting comes from martial training when lance warfare was super duper popular in Europe during the Middle Ages.
Can we pause?
Yes.
A lance is the stick.
It's the big pointy stick.
Okay, because they also are talking about there's 3 lances in a bout,
Mm-hmm.
and he's up by a lance. Why does lance mean so many things?
Well, because all it means is that you get 3 chances to whack the other guy with your pointy stick.
But
so
they
you
call
get
it a
3
lance.
lances.
That's
Yes,
annoying.
because it's a lance. That's what it is. They
They're
call it a
referring to the
lance.
fact that he has 3 sticks, and if he breaks it every time, then he'll have gone through 3 lances.
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
But
And
if
so,
he misses, then he would only have like 2 lances. Anyways,
that's
never mind.
that's the
It just
score.
annoyed me.
The score is how many of them did you break, or how many times did you hit the guy? Point being, back to the original question. So jousting comes from when knights and men-at-arms would train themselves in warfare, but it develops into a catch-all term for any formalized duel, whether it be for sport, for honor, whatever. So by the time that this movie supposedly takes place, which it's not very clear, but based off of the characters that they take from history, think like 1360s-ish, 1370s. It has become a very, very ritualized thing. Now, it's not universal throughout Europe, but jousting at this point is any duel, usually with lances, but sometimes with swords, any duel between 2 committed parties that is to solve a dispute or win recognition.
Okay. So jousting is more of a broad term for dueling.
Yes, but
Okay.
the thing about dueling is that dueling is usually at this time period to kill the other person. Jousting, you don't intend to kill the other person. And so at the time, that's why they have a different word for it.
Okay. The opening shot actually was a mistake involving Heath Ledger's stunt double where he was struck unconscious and fell from his horse. Fun fact.
Nice.
Okay.
That's great.
Can I tap into jousting real quick? How can you come up with a sport that is based around destroying your sport equipment?
Yeah. Because you're a noble in Europe and you have more money than you have sense. But the little comments that are made to Heath Ledger's character later in the film about, oh, he raised taxes on his lands 3 times to pay for this tournament, that is legitimate stuff that happened because it's an incredibly wasteful thing to do. The reason that in formal jousting, like big jousting tourneys, the only people who competed were rich is because you risk your horse, you risk your specific set of jousting armor, which is different than the full body set of combat armor you own as a noble. You risk the equipment, you have to pay to get there, you have to pay for your retinue of people that follow you. And so it's a very expensive, very wasteful. Think golf. It's a lot like golf if you broke your clubs golfing. Like, there's a reason that only rich people golf, and it's because you have to pay for the tee time, you have to pay for the clubs, you have to pay for the shoes, you have to pay for the balls. It's, in terms of status, like who did it, it's the medieval equivalent of like Destructo golf, where my club blows up every time I hit the ball well.
The director during the like behind the scenes commentary stuff was talking about how they basically traveled around. This tournament would be like a tour. And they traveled around and people were employed, maybe not specifically through any like actual direct channels, but people would sell, like vendors selling food at, hot dog stands at baseball games and things like that. Like they would follow the tournament around to different places and sell things or mend armor or, perform, doctors perform medicine, things like that, which I thought was interesting. Like it's a total waste, but it also kind of employed a bunch of people, in kind of like an entertainment sense.
So it's like Destruction Derby, but with Rolls Royce.
Yeah, basically. And but that's why people love it, because you're like, yeah, rich people, break your crap. I don't care. Like, go for it. And if you hurt each other, it's even more fun. And then another crazy thing about jousting is it's so popular in the late Middle Ages, which is where we're at now, is that people will joust each other, not in a formal competition, but they'll challenge each other to, contests of honor, so joust, during wars. Like occasionally, not duels to the death, jousts for honor. So, like, hey, you English guy, you slept with my sister when you invaded this town, and it's war, and invading the town is fine, but you slept with my sister specifically, and so now I'm going to redeem her honor in this formal joust. And if I do well enough, your camp will let me leave and go back to my camp, and maybe we'll kill each other tomorrow when our armies actually fight.
No, so now I know why they're producing a musical version of this because Hamilton was so big.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it makes sense.
Everything's legal in New Jersey, brother.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Speaking of musical, probably the most memorable thing about this film is that it's set in medieval times, and yet the fact that the soundtrack is full of classic rock songs. First up is Queen's We Will Rock You, which, if there was a song that could pass as being made before electricity, it would be this one, sparing the guitar solo. And I love that they just have people playing, not trumpets, but some sort of instrument similar to it, some sort of horn, and they're playing it off like they're playing the guitar solo. And I'm like, those two things don't sound alike, but whatever, we're rolling with it. I'm here. So the director said he used modern music to convey to the audience how people of the time felt about the music of their era. So, like, they're rocking out to some new horn and string ensemble the same way we would rock out to, Lowrider and Queen and all these other tracks that are on here.
Yeah, well, it's a sporting event, so there's going to be music. People are going to have fun. They're going to. I know. I don't think it's this movie, but at one point in like Robin Hood Men in Tights, they do the Chief's Chop, where they're like, oh. People wouldn't do that specifically, but it's like people have been people for thousands of years. Like if you have an excuse to rally behind somebody, you do it. Like as far back as Rome and the Byzantine Empire, there are actual gangs of chariot race supporters. Like in the chariot races, they would form gangs of support for a specific driver or a specific team so violently that in Constantinople in like the 500s, when the Byzantine Empire is now the Roman Empire, they almost destroy the city in like a giant gang war between the blues and the greens, I think, of the chariot racers. So people have always been fanatically committed to sporting things that have absolutely no bearing on their daily life.
That has to be the lamest reason to start a gang. I wonder what their flashing their signs were. Do you think it was just? Do you think they would just spin their fingers around in a circle like the wheels on a chariot?
I don't know, but I know that they like actually bought swords and killed each other. So it's what you think Eagles fans are crazy. Let me tell you.
Gosh. Okay. All right. So a little bit of explanation of the way points work in jousting. So it's if you strike and you break your joust, specifically break the joust, it's 1 point. If you strike in the head and break the joust, it's 2 points. And if you knock them off their horse, it's 3 points.
If you replace the word joust with lance, yes.
Lance, I said joust every time, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, do I say it again and edit it, or do I just leave it?
No, just let me burn you. It's okay. Just
Fine.
just let it roll.
This is embarrassing.
That is a thing that people did. We have like modern joust competitions where people take the rules from various documents that they found. The thing though is that it's not a universal rule. It differs tournament to tournament. And so for the simplicity of the movie, it's the same rule everywhere they go. But there are competitions where it's 5. There are competitions where it's 10 lances. There are competitions where you ride until somebody gets knocked off. Like it's up to it's like high school pickup basketball. Like it's basketball, but some games I can knock you across the floor to block a shot, and some games I can't, and I don't know until I figure out who I'm playing basketball with.
Okay.
Same idea.
So there is a chance that there are prison rules to jousting.
There are recorded jousts where they started with 3 lances. They get off their horses and they swing 3 sword swings at each other, and you either block it or get hit. Then you swing 3 axes at each other. Then you go at each other with 3 daggers. And then finally it's 3 fisticuff blows. And then you determine who won the joust.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so we just kind of start off in a tournament. And there's like very little explanation given. So Kyle, where are we? When are we? Who are we? Are we real? Are any of these people real other than Jeffrey?
The only other one who's real is Edward the Black Prince,
right?
Which is really him and Chaucer are the only way that you can even kind of peg this movie. Luckily, they did exist at the same time.
I don't want to peg it.
So so we are in France in the late 1300s, mid late 1300s.
Okay.
The weird part about that, though, is that is smack dab in the early stage of the 100 Years' War, which goes from 13 something to 15 something or 12. I'll look it up in a second. Long story short, England and France, I had it and then I lost it. England and France are in a perpetual state of on-off warfare for 116 years.
Well, they do have a little bit like a rivalry. They bet against each other and things like that. So there's a little bit of that here.
But I mean like at one point England conquers 3/4 of France level war, like before they rebound. And we're at the point of the war, if Edward the Black Prince is alive, we're at the opening stages of the war where he is the reason that England is winning. He is, in real life, this terrifyingly good battlefield commander, who is also, evidently, a pretty decent dude by the standards of medieval Europe.
Good guy, Edward.
But he's called the Black Prince because it's such a menacing name. He wins almost every battle he fights. He's like Robert E. Lee and Andrew Jackson had a big, scary medieval baby leading a cutting-edge army against a French power that should stomp him 3 different times. And he not just bloodies their nose, he eviscerates every major French army he comes across. Like, the dude is terrifyingly good at fighting battles. And so that makes this movie weird, because at the period that it's happening, there's absolutely no way there would be English people jousting in tournaments in France, unless it was parts of France controlled by England, in which case they wouldn't be allowing French nobles, because the French nobles would still be wanting to fight them for control of their own land.
Yeah, I think you're just trying to make sense of a movie that didn't pay that much attention.
Yeah, exactly. But that's my point. So when you say, when are we, where are we? We are in a version of 1300s France that isn't torn apart by constant warfare, even though the constant warfare is alluded to at various points in the movie.
Right. Okay. So they were like, I don't want it to be wartime. That's like more like rated R. Let's keep it PG-13. We'll just have a little rivalry going on.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, so can we just talk about how this entire movie is based on William, after getting his face caved in, but managing to stay on his horse, decides he can be a champion and wants to joust full time? Like, they argue in front of this hanged man, which is also hilarious. He's just dead, being eaten by crows, and they're having this argument over, like, if you can take these coins, we will go back. And he's like, I can be a champion. I can fake being a noble, and I will joust better than anyone. And it's like, dude, you were like 5 inches away from being pummeled into the ground. But okay, to each their own. That's the whole plot of the movie right there.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, much like sword fighting, where there's this Hollywood thing that any Joe Schmo can pick up a sword, practice for 2 weeks, and then take on the big bad guy. Like, in reality, it takes years to be a competent swordsman. Same thing with lances. It takes years to be good enough to not die at, like, in a one-on-one fight, especially, of like any medieval warfare aspect. And so the idea that he's just going to go out in the woods for a couple weeks and become good enough at jousting to even vaguely compete and to win the melees is crazy. Like, that's not a thing.
the training montage is after the decision, right?
Right.
To go down that career path.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's already decided, and then he trains, and then we get man-ass just walking onto the screen, which is Paul Bettany's first day of shooting for this film, and it was done in front of a crowd full of extras. He's going to play Jeffrey, which of course is spelled with a G, because he's an artistic expressionist writing poet.
It's because it was always spelled with a G in the Middle Ages.
Whatever, man.
Wow.
If you have a friend, do you have a friend who's named Jeffrey spells it with a G?
Well, of course not.
No, because they have no friends. Okay, moving on. All right, I'm so sorry to anyone who's actually named Jeffrey. Anyways, so
bold words from a guy who was one direction away from being named Dust Out.
That's not true. That doesn't make sense.
Dust in, dust out. Wax on, wax off.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. where the hell is Rowan? Rowan?
It's a city in France.
All right, whatever.
That's yeah.
So we find out pretty quickly that Jeffrey is a little bit of a gambler. So why he was naked in the first place is because he bet literally the clothes on his back and lost. He's clothed for about 5 minutes, and then we're naked again. But we also meet Jocelyn. Miss Jocelyn. She's going to be a big character here. I like how she's kind of a troublemaker, you know? She's kind of that girl that just lights a little bit of chaos just for the fun of it. So she distracts William to the point where he just rides his horse into a church.
You desecrate the house of God.
And if you pay attention during this scene, it's like flutes, kind of whimsical music with just this very generic drop D tuned guitar over top of it for some reason.
This is where I want to bring Johannes into our fold, and I want him to either prosecute or defend everything that has happened in the movie up to this point, because I legitimately don't think the movie gets good by any stretch of the imagination until after this point that we're talking about. Like, I think it is a good movie, but I don't think it gets like good really.
Man, I don't know.
Until after this.
It takes 12 minutes to establish 90% of where this movie's going to go. They're just speed running the first act.
Well, I know, but the first act, my point is like the first act isn't anything. It's good once you get through it, but if this is your first watch through of the movie, you're like 20 minutes in, and other than an old guy has died in his armor, and that Heath Ledger has gotten smacked with a lance, literally, and a naked guy has walked across the screen, nothing has happened.
And a training montage.
I mean, it's basically, it's kind of a weird hero's journey at that point, right? But it's
Right.
like it's like the calling is self-proclaimed. It's like,
I am the Messiah. Just ask me, baby.
but you know, it's like, oh, there's this thing I'm gonna do now. I've already proven I'm great. I'm gonna
For
have
reasons.
it. Why not? I'm still alive. I can do the thing. So let me train the thing. Well, I mean, the motivation was money, right? And then the woman complicates things.
As
Always.
they do.
Greatly. I'm curious to like from a historical perspective, like the white clothing that she wears. So there's obviously like to draw your eye to what she's doing, but that seems very challenging.
Yeah,
in that environment.
here's the weird thing about this movie is the men's clothing, not bad. It's not great, but it's a good mix of Hollywood and medieval. The women's clothing, I don't know what they were smoking in that costume room, but like especially our female leads clothing, like nothing like that ever.
The black one with like the see-through, completely split down the middle top.
That's not.
I was
that
like,
is not a thing.
There's also a point in this. I was going to get to this later, but let's just do it now. There's also a point where she has a punk rock haircut with like multi-length cuts that has hair gel spiking the back of it, and there's multiple colored hair in it, like multiple.
Very emo, yeah.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, well, this movie is intentionally anachronistic, and anachronistic just means things in a time period that don't belong there. Most of Hollywood is anachronistic, but they try to hide it. Like the guns in Django Unchained, some of the fake battles in The Patriot that we talked about, war crimes that the British never committed that are more at home in like Nazi Germany. This one is openly anachronistic and it works, but her character, I don't want to say she, the actress does great, but like her character design almost pushes it too far. Like she's almost too not medieval. And it works, but like you said, like it's the punk rock haircut and the clothes. Like this is where they really doubled down on we don't have to look like medieval Europe at all.
Well, and then she also goes to like that straw hat looking thing, the see-through hat. Like that looks very like a British horse racy. I'm gonna get right. So it's like
or Kentucky Derby-esque.
Right. Like, a very confusing character. in general. It's like, what are you doing?
And especially because everybody else around her vaguely looks medieval. Like it looks medieval enough that you're like, yeah, okay, this is either 1600 Salem or 1300 France. But either way, it's fine. It was a long time ago. And you're like, what is this Def Leppard groupie doing in the middle?
No, Ron, it should be like a Lenny Kravitz groupie.
Oh, right. Maybe an Evanescence groupie. Maybe
Evanescence, yeah.
Evanescence groupie?
Yeah.
Did they?
But,
I just think
What
they
is
have
Gwen
groupies.
Stefani saying? This tourney is bananas doing in the middle of my tent.
but yeah, so I really don't get her deal. I don't fully understand why she is here and why she's traveling. Like she turns into a groupie, but she also obviously has some kind of status. But why would she go on a European tour? Well,
Who
because
is
of
she?
Heath Ledger. But
Yeah,
but
the fact that she's following the tour. Full disclosure, women didn't have rights in the Middle Ages. Like, lo and behold. And weirdly, the richer you were, within reason, the less rights you had, because the more people
Ouch.
cared what you were doing. And so I could be wrong. I am not specifically a medieval historian. There's nothing that comes to mind for me other than Hollywood that explains why this single woman of childbearing age has not been married since the age of 14 or 15 and is stuck in a castle somewhere with her 18 brats and her lord's affairs that she manages while he goes off and breaks his warhorse in jousts.
Is there ever an explanation of like who, like her family, her background, her
She just
status?
exists.
That's yeah.
It's like she's like Lord Adamar. Like Lord Adamar is simply a warlord who people hate. That's it. That's the whole villain. Like that's all we get from him.
and again, like she's white in the first scene. He's like very black clothed throughout the whole thing. But it's like, how obvious can you be?
My favorite, though, one thing that is very medieval is when she says that if she starts laughing at the fact that she got this idiot who's thinking with the brain not in his head to ride into church on a horse, and then the Catholic priest turns around and she goes, "I'm sorry, if I didn't laugh, I would cry because why has God cursed me with this face?"
Right.
And he goes, "Ah, yes, my child, beauty is such a curse. May your years come quick and your looks diminish quicker."
She's like, thanks.
That is the most medieval thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, but then also her little quip when he wants her to kiss the hand, and then she's like, "That's cool." Like,
Is this
is
new?
such a nice ring.
Was there talking about the ring? He got offended, dude. He got way offended by that.
And then he just walks away going, "No."
As you do. So Count Adamar, played by Rufus Sewell, is a man.
That just sounds like a villain's name. Rufus Sewell?
He could walk in his face, dude. His face. I said he's fortunately and unfortunately blessed with the face of a villain. He's just got that look to him. Like he's not. I don't know what it is. There's just certain people who I'm like, you'll never play the hero. You will always be a bad guy.
He's handsome in a creepy way. Like, it's like, you're good looking, but in like you're gonna activate the Death Station to blow up the planet sort of way. Like a Tom Hiddleston, like, who are we murdering in the dark tomorrow sort of.
That's fair.
Yeah.
He's got slightly uneven eyes. I think that's what it is.
He's probably just been hit with enough pointy sticks that it's jostled.
That's fair. That's fair.
they're called lances, I learned.
Funny,
And
I thought they
there's
were
3
called
of them.
jousts.
All right. Pull back from the fire. This roast session's over. All right, moving on.
He's been lanced with enough jousts.
Whatever. All right. Our main goodie and our main baddie face off early on. Adamar coming out in what looks like the Gucci of knight armor. He starts to lose, and he gets mad, and then in the third lance, Adamar strikes him in the face, winning it 3-2.
Which shows off Adamar's skill, because if you think about the fact that because war horses are fast, so you're rolling at like 18, 20, 25 miles an hour down a pretty short stint, and you have the reflexes to lift your 6-foot wooden spear effectively up and smack a guy's head dead on. That's some skill.
Oh, so did they really have little fists in the front?
It depended.
Okay.
Usually they did, because it was to signify to everybody that it's not a war lance. Because by the time that this movie supposedly takes place, emphasis on supposedly, it's an organized sport, and so the lances are built different. They're built to shatter on contact. The shields that they use, instead of going out to deflect the lances, they come in to facilitate broken lances. It's, their armor is heavier and more ornate than it ever would be in battle because you're like a NASCAR driver. It's like how NASCAR cars, you can't just buy them anywhere else. It's effectively the same thing for like jousting equipment. But the thing is, they still use war horses. And so that's part of what makes it so expensive is we all know a horse breaks a leg, they're not going to do well. But yeah, they'd have the fists, they would have the super ornate armor. Really, that part is not wrong. It was like the Gucci of armor. Like you would wear your nicest, most ornate, most ridiculously heavy crap. To protect you from the lance, but also because I'm out here. Look at me. I'm Lord Ulrich von Liechtenstein in my fancy pants armor. Witness me, bloodbath.
Yeah, armor like that must have cost you like a house, a horse, your wife, and 2 pounds of bread. Like
it was pretty expensive.
His armor is thin and small, but supposedly stronger. The explanation? I found a new way to heat the steel. What?
I mean, there's precedence for that in the sense that plate armor really only exists in mass from the 1400s onwards because it's really hard to make. And prior to that point, it is very thick and very clumsy and very heavy. However, there is no record of people having just like ridiculous. They're not like samurai swords. Like you don't just randomly have a ridiculously thin breastplate and be fine. It's still metal.
What about upside down Nike symbols carved into it?
Also, no.
No,
nope.
Not a thing.
Nope.
Okay, didn't think
the Nike
so.
swoosh. Nope.
So you're telling me right now that Nike was not founded in the 1400s.
Yeah, I'm looking you as in the eye as two people on a Zoom call can, and I'm telling you right now that there were no Nike swooshes anywhere in medieval Europe.
Nike was not founded by a medieval blacksmith woman.
If you said the word Nike anywhere within the hearing of anybody affiliated with the Catholic clergy in the Middle Ages, they would put you in the stocks so fast. Like if you dared to even speak the word of a god that was not God or Jesus Christ, you would be excommunicated so quickly.
Wait, Nike is a god?
Like,
yeah,
would be like Middle English, right? At that point,
yeah, it's Middle English, which is where the word "fong" comes in, which I'm sure Dustin's going to ask me about.
I did. I was wondering about that, dude. Watt is wanting to fong someone so bad.
Fong, loosely translated to modern English, is just beat the shit out of. Like it's literally a word for assault, attack viciously.
I want to start using that. Prepare to be fonged.
But it's a Middle English word because prior to roughly 1500, people didn't speak the same version of English that we do now.
Okay.
In fact,
right.
Chaucer is one of the people who creates words for modern English, or in the sense that the farthest back we can trace about 2,000 modern English words is Chaucer, or words and phrases is him. And so he takes written English and deformalizes it so that more people can understand it.
Was Just Do It one of them?
No.
Okay.
No, it was not. Neither was I Feel the Need for Speed.
But as somebody who had to translate a little bit of Canterbury Tales, triggering.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. Like you're like, what is this language? It's a Germanic language with Latin grammar conventions. It doesn't make any freaking sense. But here we are speaking it.
Which is fine. I am German and I had Latin in school, but it was still like, what is going on here?
No, yeah, I know. There's a reason that everybody can learn every language except ours. And even we don't know our language. We argue with the actual English all the time about our language.
All right, so our tournament's going to keep going. The horse going through the dividing fence is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That was neat.
Yeah. It also shows how dangerous the sport is because
right.
it just is. Like it's a super put your body in harm's way sort of contest. So
Colville is Edward, Black Prince of Wales. We talked about this. Future King of England. We already
Except
said
he dies before he becomes the King of England.
Oh, shoot.
Fun little history tidbit.
Oh, shoot. So Edamar, he withdraws out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then and then William's like, nah, screw that. He came to play, I came to play. Okay. So Adamar is called away from the games. while there, he sees that William is crushing it. He's winning every tournament in his absence.
He is Rocky Balboaing this entire situation.
No kidding. The entire team helps write a letter to Jocelyn. Watt delivers it, and she delivers a message in return. I had seen this movie a bunch of times. My dad told me this was one of his favorite movies growing up, and we owned it on DVD. So I've seen it a bunch of times, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. The scene or the kiss between Watt and William used to crack me up because Watt is like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And he doesn't. He's like, ugh. And then William completely just understands the subtext of it and with the meaning behind it. And is just overjoyed, completely oblivious to the fact that he just was kissed by Watt because it was from Jocelyn. Also, like, dude, your girl just kissed another guy, man. Like, ooh, man. Like, is that allowed back then? I don't know.
None of this is allowed back then.
That's
like,
fair.
Absolutely nothing that these people are doing is allowed back then.
So, being a middle-aged Harley Quinn, Jocelyn convinces William he needs to purposefully lose. And it gives us, here it goes, most excellent line. I guess this would be lines where William is purposefully losing. And they go, what are you doing? He goes, losing. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, neither do I.
It just gets raped.
And it just gets ran over and over again. And then suddenly she's like, you must win. Jocelyn, sometimes I just don't know if you're worth it. Any proof that this traction device for his arm was real? This arm stretching, it made sense. But
it does. I think the thing though is that I can't prove it's not real.
Okay.
Medieval medicine is really difficult to get a grip on because it's not universal by any way, shape, or
right.
form. That being said, probably not, only because like I could reset a dislocated shoulder. You know, like it's a thing that is very, very feasible to do on your own. I mean, he could have walked and slammed it into a fence post and reset it. So,
well, yeah, depending on which way it was dislocated, I honestly don't see how this would just sublux his shoulder. This would pull his rotator cuff muscles, like it would just overstretch them. I don't see how this would help him in any way.
I don't either. I think
It
it's
just
one of
looks
those.
cool.
I think it's one of those things that like somebody in the back of somebody's coke-filled Hollywood mind was like stretching devices, medieval torture devices, dislocated shoulder fixer, stretching device. And then they're like, it looks cool. It looks medieval. We're putting it in the movie. It's like when I said in The Mummy, choices were made because it's the desert and it's brown people, and brown people in the desert have to be weird. A lot of those choices are in this movie. Like it's the medieval ages. Like we have to have technology that looks medieval.
That's fair. So I have a theory about this time period because you said in coke-filled minds. Coke-filled, I feel like is like probably 1980 to 1995, and then 1995 to 2005. I feel like it's people trying to remember what they would have done on coke. They're like, all right, hold on, what would he have done? And that's why you get these fast-paced kind of just going through the motion movies that we had during
I think
this
it's
era.
movies that they want to feel like coke. Like they're like, I miss it. How can I make a movie that feels like snorting?
Because it hits all the notes, but there's not the substance to it that there was, a decade prior.
It's Gremlins versus Gremlins 2, right? Where it's like,
Right.
yes, beneficial coke, and then Gremlins 2.
This worked. Let's do it again. How did we make
But
it
worse.
work? I don't remember. Just do it.
There's a
All
really
right.
funny Key and Peele skit about that, and I'm confident that it's exactly how that movie was.
I've seen that Key and Peele skit. That is a great skit. Moving on.
Can we talk really briefly just the manipulation of her?
Mhm.
Like, what was that about?
She's just toying him. She's toying him.
Well,
toying
yeah,
with
but
him.
it's like it's like this manipulation girl on TikTok that was like, in order to get my worthy booty, you're gonna do all these things. It's like,
yeah. It's also like important to note that people die in jousting competitions. Not a lot, but it'd be like it'd be like looking at a NASCAR driver and being like, hey, every time somebody's about to pin you to the wall, I want you to just take it. is the level of danger she's putting this guy. Because part of the thing is like when you're running at each other, It's why in football, if you're going to get hit, they tell you to put your shoulder down and hit the other guy too. Because if it's two opposing forces of roughly the same speed, you just kind of bounce off one another. If you're sitting still and this dude on a war horse, let's say people were smaller back then, but not by much. So let's say this 155, 160 pound super muscly guy in 40 or 50 or 60 pounds of jousting armor on a 1,500 pound war horse with a 40 pound lance in his hand comes at you at 25 miles an hour and you're sitting still, you're going to die.
You're going to get hit by a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Early 2000 women just kind of didn't care. Just, if you don't die in your pursuit for me, you must not love me.
And the man just took it. They just said, yeah, okay.
What are you going to do?
But then she comes back, and in true early 2000s fashion, she's like, now you need to win all the contests. And he goes, okay. And then he just wins every single one.
Is she manipulative?
Oh yeah, I mean, but it's like, you know, it's almost like she sets him up to be the last on the ranking, and he has to fight his way back up to prove that, you know, oh yeah, you are actually worthy of my presence. You peasant.
And I mean, in the logic of the movie, it's to prove that he's different from every other muscle-headed joust jock, because it's the early 2000s, and that's what you have to do to prove you're different, is just, you know, get punished, I guess. So in the movie, it's not as obtuse as it feels like when we're talking about it. Like, it's not like, it doesn't happen in the movie and you think, oh, that manipulative hag. But then when you think about it later, you're like, wait a second. Hold up. 1 minute. Why did she want him to die? What's happening here?
Well, but since we brought up the topic of language, right? Wouldn't that also, just understanding where he's coming from, like, clearly distinguish him from everybody around him, right?
It would, yeah. That's something that is just missed in this movie. Yeah. It's missed in a lot of medieval movies. People did not sound the same. Like, there were very clear class divides in how you sounded and whether you could read or write. So the first hint is it's a good thing they run into Geoffrey Chaucer, because none of these guys are going to know how to read or write. Like, they're not going to have any idea. They're going to know basic math, because that was a skill you had to have to survive at all. But they're not going to be able to read or write or understand anything that's happening when they get to this tourney. So they have to run across a literate guy who's kind of the deus ex machina of cultural subversion in the movie. It's like, it's okay, I'll just fake it. It'll be fine.
He's a PR department.
Yeah. No, Amazon didn't abuse its factory workers. That wasn't real. Forget that. We treat them nice now. He's that guy. Don't pay attention to the fact my Lord can't read. He could read this anytime he wants to. He just doesn't want to, so I'm going to read it for him. But yeah, there's a lot in the movie that if you look deeper than the surface, it doesn't work at all. But it moves so fast that you don't have time to look deeper than the surface, and that is the beautiful part of this movie.
I'm telling you, man, this is post-coat Hollywood. This is realizing we have the points that we have to hit, but having no idea how to get from one to the other. We got to talk about this. It's the most random placed flashback, but young William was made an apprentice at a young age, his dad leaving him with a knight for 7 years, which ended up being 12.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. We got to come back to it. It's almost like they had the scene where he's reunited with his father, and then they're like, we never introduced the father earlier on, and they just had to throw this in. I don't know. That's kind of the vibe that I got from this. All right, so we're in London, boys. This is it. World Championships. Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town plays as we see the Super Bowl of jousting bring in thousands of people.
And we cross London Bridge, which is a nice little, that's a fun little tidbit.
Adamar's here, and he's brought his villainous, uneven eyes with him. He informs William he's entered into negotiations with Jocelyn's father. Arranged marriage a thing back then?
Arranged marriage is the only marriage that you're going to get into if you're wealthy.
There we go.
Point. My most dope line is one that she says pretty soon in the movie, where the poor marry for love, because that is very, very true in the situation of the time. And not everybody who was poor got to marry for love either. Marriage is a very different concept then. It's not about love. It's about social union. It's about social, either maintaining social status, improving your economic wealth. It's a tool of society. Yeah. So if you're wealthy, now that don't take this the wrong way. Most people did not intentionally set up their daughters or their sons with crappy people. That's a misconception that we have. most people cared about the welfare of their children, but they had a different idea of what that welfare.
But if they trade me 12 chickens,
it's just a misconception that arranged marriage is always like a negative, in the sense that like it's always done against the will of the person. Usually it would be done with their security in mind. So it would be like, you may not love this man, he may not love you, but he's respectful, he's going to treat you well, and he's so wealthy that even if he dies tomorrow, his estate will keep you afloat. Was the idea of the time.
I don't know, man. That still sounds kind of shitty to me.
I
don't
but you
care
gotta,
if your
like,
estate keeps me afloat or not. I gotta live with you every damn day.
Yeah, but this is a time where, especially if you're a woman, if he dies and his estate can't keep you afloat, your options are become a nun, marry somebody else before the estate goes bankrupt, or die. That's what you got. So it was.
He has chosen death.
It's hard to understand how land wealthy and cash poor most medieval nobility were. And so part of the obsession with arranged marriages and part of the obsession about collecting land is your wealth was based on what your land produced. You usually were not sitting on giant coffers of gold. You could, depending on the nobility, like there were noble families that did, but they were usually the royal families or the ones right below. There are thousands of noble families whose wealth entirely resides in the land that they have and the peasants that work for them. And so to maintain that wealth and maintain your standard of living, you have to make marriages that keep you in that train of existence.
Couldn't you just tell your children, like, this is what's best for the family? Go pick out of this lot.
Sometimes they did. It depended on the family.
All right.
I mean, today, a lot of traditional Indian families still practice arranged marriage, but they do it more like that. They're like, I think that these people would be a good match for you, or I think this guy would be a good match for you. Tell me if you think that's true. You know, like it's a misconception that it was always shut the hell up, marry this person.
But
like,
it was sometimes.
It was sometimes. It was entirely dependent on who was setting up the arranged marriage. But generally speaking, it's a Western modern misconception that like fathers in the past just get more and more abusive the farther back you go. Mothers in the past get more and more overprotective the farther back you go, and people get crueler the farther back you go. That's not true. They were living in the time like anybody else was, and they were making decisions that they thought would be the best with what they knew and what they were trying to survive.
It's been a long week.
All right. Okay.
It's not you.
That was an incredibly good history rant. I just made somebody listening to this podcast tear up, and you're over here yawning at me. I don't know who that somebody is, but somebody's listening to this crying now, and you just yawned. Johannes was gazing into the depths of the human history soul, like, wow, that this is speaking to me, and then you just go, like my German Shepherd when he eats too much kibble.
Well, whatever, man. I'm tired. Moving
like
on.
Agent, I can't work in these conditions.
I thought it was a very compelling, argument that you brought.
It was unrelated. The yawn was unrelated to Kyle's rant. Completely unrelated.
I do have a question about that boat floaty chain thing that they go over. What were they supposed to go over there? Just a random river?
I've never figured that out because
it's not the channel.
I just haven't because I suppose it could be the Thames, but they have bridges for that. And it's not the channel. The channel's what, like 60 miles wide or something? Like there's never in human history a 60-mile chain across the English Channel. It's actual ocean, and you're not going to survive. So that is a legitimate way that ferries have worked for a really, really long time. I don't know what they thought, like what body of water they thought they had to cross to get to London, unless they're already in England and they're coming from a direct. I don't know. It's a legitimate method of transportation used in a context that makes absolutely no sense in this movie, and it's literally just there to give them that it's night and we're traveling on the peaceful riverboat, and now we're reminiscing about the last time we've been home. Like that's the entire reason that scene exists.
Well, right, and then wouldn't they also bring their horse? Because
yes,
horses are pretty valuable.
You have to have. And here's the other thing: they've been talking about how expensive it is to get home to England, and then it's like a Branson Ducks boat to get over there, and you're like, how is that expensive? And the reality is, it's expensive because you have to book passage on an actual freaking boat because the channel is actual freaking ocean.
Another thing is the fact talking about how much money's being spent. The budget was $65 million, and I thought you probably could have done this movie for like half of that. I don't see how they spent so much money on this movie.
I do know that there is an incredible amount of like high level combat stunt work that goes in.
Yeah.
And having the correct safety apparatus set up costs a lot of money. So and hiring the people to do it and paying the insurance rates for the people and paying the insurance rates for the horses that you're going to try really hard not to break. But anytime a horse gets knocked over in a movie, its owner pees himself because that's a, $10,000-$15,000 thoroughbred freaking trained horse that is falling over. It adds up quick.
I'm sure. I don't know. Just seems high.
But I agree. It seems like a high bid for what we get.
Well, and they also filmed in Prague, right?
Ooh, yeah, that's true.
So like a lot of the people, the extras you see, they didn't understand English, which I understand. There's this one scene where they're supposed to react to something, and then the Mark Eddy character is just like, yeah, and then that sparks everybody. Like that was ad-libbed to get them to react.
Oh my gosh,
because they didn't
so
speak a lick
funny.
of English. Yeah, they were like actual homeless people. Yeah, like actual homeless people were extras here. Fun facts.
Honestly, they should do that more. Like, I think like a lot of homeless people would be an extra in your movie if you'd pay them a couple $1,000.
They didn't say if they paid them or not. They may have just been like, stand here.
I mean, extras get paid a little bit. Like that's usually, but especially with big budget movies like that. But that's really funny because I thought that was just really good writing. I didn't ever know that he was like, hey.
Let's finish this movie, boys. All right. William goes and finds his father, John Thatcher, who has turned blind.
John Thatcher, the Thatcher.
I'm telling you, man, this scene hit. I don't know why. It's so much more impactful than anything else in this movie. But when he tells, like, I have word of your son, and he's talking about it like it's not him, and then his dad knows that, like, is it you? Are you standing here in front of me? And he goes, yes, it's me. And I changed my stars. And I was like, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff.
The movie does really, they do a good job of how lonely medieval life could be, because part of the reason most people didn't ever go more than 5 or 6 miles from where they lived is if you went too far, you were never going to come back. And so if you enjoyed being around your family, or if your family was an important support system for you, you couldn't leave them because if you did, you wouldn't have the money or the resources to get back there. So,
or survive where you went.
Yeah, especially in the class that he's in, which he's the trade class, so he's not a full-on peasant, but like, yeah, you don't have money. You trade your services for what you need to survive. So if you ever leave, you're going to have to do the same thing where you end up, and traveling costs actual money in a lot of cases. So
Adamar sees him, realizes that he's been lying this whole time, and then he's in this, you know the name of this public humiliation thing.
Oh, the stocks. Yeah.
The stocks. He's in the stocks. Is this real?
He's like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're real, and they're used up into like the 1700s, 1800s.
Really?
Yeah. Well, they don't hurt you, but it gives people the ability to throw abuses, both verbally and physical, at you, and you can do literally nothing about it. So,
can we talk about the kid that hits him? Because there's a callback. There's like this, like the parade into London, and he sees himself, and then that flashes into this kid, and that kid is hitting him, and it's like,
I didn't catch that was the same kid.
Oh yeah, and it's like all the ambitions this kid had, seeing himself in Heath Ledger's character, are torn to pieces when he's in the stocks.
Oh, okay.
It's also it's a weirdly like finger on the pulse of people statement of how much these people shouldn't be doing this to him because he's representing them. Like, if the logical part of your brain thinks, well, if news comes out that the jousting hero is a peasant like the rest of us, we're going to rally behind him when he's revealed. And in reality, most people historically like need status quo so much that they're like, no, you broke the rules, and the rules are what keep us all alive. So in the stocks you go, my good man. If I can throw rotten lettuce at somebody, I'm going to do it. I don't care if he is my champion.
Screw it.
It's not a Lisa Nalgaib moment for him.
Yep. And then Edward the Black Prince, who has not been present for any of this movie, randomly shows up.
He was in a scene. He was in a scene earlier.
And repays his homeboy
Yep.
with the, he bro checks his homeboy in the stocks and is like, because you let me joust against you and broke my freaking ribs while doing so, I am going to knowingly lie about your lineage and abuse my royal power and say that I cannot be questioned, and I'm going to free you so that you can go kick this guy's butt that neither of us like. The ultimate bro move.
If you can't abuse your royalty for the good of the people, what's the point?
I will say that Edward the Black Prince is low-key the most badass character in this entire movie, though, because he stands there with his henchmen in his black cloak, and then like a Jedi Knight from Phantom Menace just whips it off and has long swords ready.
Also, can we talk about how the fact that that Williams team was there ready to defend him from this huge mob of people? Like they were ready to fight to the death to defend him.
Mm-hmm. And that this is the first time Chaucer can't sway the crowd, which is again an actually pretty good movie tactic, where it's like, okay, so this is how ingrained in the social order these people are, is that not only are they not going to support this guy who is objectively championing them, they're not going to listen to this guy that they've loved, that they've literally come miles to listen to.
All right, here we go. Adamar's lance, not joust, has a spike concealed in sugar that breaks away easily, and William is punctured in the first round. He takes another hit in the second. Now it's down. He's down 2-0. Only thing he can do, take his armor off, because I can't breathe with it on. Take it off. Don't try to bend it or, remove the shirt from underneath.
Or acknowledge that I can't breathe because where the special effects team decided to put my puncture hole is directly where my lung is, and I'm just suffocating on my own blood.
Yeah, that's definitely not it. Anyways.
Despite having the Nike armor, right? Like
right.
That he was supposed to help him breathe.
Yeah. He says, just do it. No armor. His lance literally tied to his arm. He goes in, shouting his own name, which I thought was kind of strange. He knocks Adamar off his horse and wins. Everyone celebrates. Kiss at the end. Cue AC/DC, and let's get out of here. There's our movie.
That's it.
That's the movie.
That's the movie.
And it was a movie.
It was a movie. It wasn't, I'm not going to call it the moviest movie because I reserved that for Dracula when we recorded that.
You also said that about Rocky IV.
I'm not wrong on either of those. They're just different types of movies.
You're not wrong. Maybe you could do one per decade, because that'd be 80s, 90s. This would be the 2000s, but I don't think so. 300 definitely out movies this movie.
300's a pretty movieist movie. There's probably a Mission Impossible somewhere in there that gives it a run for its money. But
Movie Impossible.
The movie Red is a pretty movie.
I didn't finish it. God, I
exactly.
hated that movie.
Exactly.
All right. So approximately 30 seconds each. We got biggest dope, biggest nope. I'm not prepared. I didn't write anything down, so I'm gonna improv this. So Kyle, you want to start?
It's funny that you say that, because this reminded me a little of our early episodes where like we didn't have anything written down, or we're just like, let's just go. Yeah, I'll start. Biggest dope is definitely the line, "The poor marry for love." Like, I feel like that's something in history that's a little lost a lot, that, and even now, like people can find a way to be happy in any walk of life. And so one thing that poor people in history got was love that maybe rich people didn't. Biggest nope. So many things. The sword fighting moves are the biggest nope in the melee. Can't do it.
That's fair.
They're so bad.
Okay, biggest dope. We will rock you in the opening. If you're gonna buy in, you buy in that scene, and if you're not going to, you're not gonna like the next 2 hours. Just the way it is. Biggest nope. I'm gonna go with the random synchronized dance scene that doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, take us home.
All right, biggest dope, Mark Eddy. I like Mark Eddy a lot. I think he's a great actor. He brings a lot of comedy to this, and a fun character. So I biggest dope for me. And then biggest nope, I was also going to say the dance scene.
There we go.
For somebody who's not able to dance, to then just being able to pick up square dancing, medieval square dancing is amazing. But oh my God.
I respect your opinions, but I need to point out that there's one part in the melee scene where he hits the guy in the helmet over his shoulder with the sword.
It's legitimate. You can't block it.
What do you can't block? You can't swing it like that.
There's no block for that.
That's how that works. Oh my gosh. Biggest physical dope for me, or runner up, is when they're all laughing at his lightweight diet armor, and then he just hops up on his horse when everybody else needs to be helped up onto their horse, and they all stop, and he just kind of looks over his shoulder and like gives them the head nod, and then goes back to what
I'm sorry.
doing.
All of that was completely undone by I found a new way to heat the steel.
I know. I
just wonder how much money Nike gave them to put the swoosh on there twice.
I like how Transformers with Michael Bay was like, I'll do you one better. Remember how you put the Nike swoosh in Knight's Tale? I'm going to bribe every major car manufacturer to have a car in my movie.
That's fair.
I am single-handedly responsible for the resurgence of the Camaro. You're so welcome, Chevy.
That was perfect timing for that product placement. Okay. All right. So where can we find your podcast?
On every podcast platform, Movie Mistrial or moviemistrial.com.
Very cool. Do you have anything specific you want to plug before we head out of here?
You can find us on all the socials too. The good, the bad, the ugly. At Movie Mistrial. Other than that, give us a listen.
All right.
And you're invited if you want to argue.
I love to argue with Kyle.
We love to. Don't tempt it. Can we? We should do a 4-person, and you and I, Dustin, we come up with an opinion. They have to argue with us.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be great. I'd
come
love
in.
to tag
300 is the best movie ever. Prove us wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find a movie that has the synergy of historical background, and then we'll figure that out.
Well, if you guys ever do Rocky IV, I cannot go against that movie. I'm pretty sure that's got to be top 250, right?
Let's do it. I don't know.
The silence speaks for itself.
So Rocky 1 is place 212.
Rocky 1's 212?
Yeah.
All right. I'd love Rocky 1. I'm not gonna lie. That's a great movie.
We were having such a good time, and then Dustin and I answered questions we didn't want to hear the answer to, and then we asked questions that we didn't want to know, and here we are, mildly. Dude, Rocky 4 is a 6.9 on IMDb. There's no way in a frozen hell.
IMDb is not good for ranking movies. We talked about this in a past episode, and I was like, I'm just going to stop bringing up their IMDb, because 95% of movies on IMDb are between like a 6.5 and a 7.5. And that's the majority of movies. Could be great, it's a 7.4. Could be trash, it's a 6.6. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
I can't
Rocky
believe
IV is the greatest movie ever made. It's okay. IMDb doesn't have to agree, but the people know.
Do they? I can't believe in the same podcast episode you yawned after I gave a very impassioned historical rant, and then you just said in front of Johannes, the man whose entire soul is wrapped up in sludging through 250 IMDb movies, that IMDb isn't a good way to rank movies.
I don't think that's how they ranked them.
Bro, blink twice if it doesn't hurt you during this podcast episode.
No, but like the scale, I don't think that's not the way it is. I wouldn't imagine. Is that the way they go off of? Is the star rating?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, bro, how else are they going to rank them by IMDb?
I thought it was just a list on IMDb. What?
Which makes it challenging, because I see Oppenheimer is at 106 now. We already talked about Oppenheimer because it was rated really high when it came out.
Oh,
and that's what he said. They started at the top, and he said, in hindsight, we shouldn't have done that, because it probably would have been more fun if we had started at the bottom.
Yeah, but if you started at your bottom, like maybe 250 may have just changed every week, and you would never have gotten past 250. I didn't mean it as a way to insult the podcast. I'm just saying IMDb for like 95% of movies. See, that's not part of the 95% of movies. The top 250 is clearly in the top 2.5%. And then the bottom 250 movies of all time would be in the bottom 2.5%. But point being, moving on. I didn't mean it that way.
I don't think he actually thought you did. I just saw a good chance to make fun of you.
Well, thanks, Kyle. Thanks. I'm half exhausted. I still have work to do today.
I'm half exhausted. I'm fully stupid, and here we are.
Here we are. Another day, another podcast. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I will delete the part about making fun of IMDb.
No, keep it. It's flawed. It's flawed.
I love that. No, keep it in. The people need to know.
The people need to know.
People need to know. Like I'll both my Raji and I will defend that till the end. But as long as Life is Beautiful in the top 30, we have lost all faith in that list.
I don't even know what that is.
Not good.
Not good.
Damn.
What's your hottest take on the top 250 so far? I guess maybe other than Life is Beautiful. What's another one that you're like, this definitely, that you've already done? I don't want to give a spoiler for a future episode, but like, what's one that you were like, this does not need to be this high?
Oh, this does not need to be this high.
Yeah.
Terminator 2.
Terminator 2? Too high?
Yeah, I think so.
Terminator 2 is a good movie, but I don't know if I would put it, I don't know, I might put it top 250, but depending on how high it was, it's not as good. It has not aged as well.
Yeah, it's in the 28 currently.
28?
Yeah, that's too high.
That's too high.
That's too high.
Is Terminator 1 higher?
No.
Oh, see, that's a mistake. Terminator 1's better than Terminator 2.
Same with Alien and Aliens. Like,
Yep.
you know?
See,
So yeah, the list is flawed.
that's fine.
Yes.
Hey, so is our podcast. And here we
Yeah.
are. All right.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks again for coming on. Everybody else, we'll be back next week. We're recording these out of order, so we don't know what's going to be on next week, but come back anyways.
We have no idea.
Goodbye.
See ya.